right, we'll go ahead and get kicked off here. Again, just one last note for those who just joined us. If you want to communicate at all with me as a host, just use the Q&A section and Zoom. It should be in the bottom section there, Q&A. You can open a question, send it my way, and I'll try and address those as they come up. Also have a colleague that's attending as well that he may be able to answer some of those questions as they come up. All right, so let's jump into the slides today. We're going to go through an intro to Alteryx, specifically covering a report automation for everyday business users. That's kind of my favorite thing to sell Alteryx for, is just helping everyday business users go through the tasks that they're already doing, but do those tasks a lot faster. So an agenda outline for today. Yes, you certainly can. Just addressing that question that came in. Let me okay. So just a quick agenda for today. I'll go through quick introductions, tell you a little bit about data meaning, as well as myself. Talk about the why behind Alteryx, go through a quick Alteryx demo, illustrate a simple business use case, and then we'll address any questions that come up during the session at the end. Or if there's additional questions that you kind of hold on until the end, you want to share those then, more than welcome to do that as well. All right, so a quick introduction about data meaning. Data meaning is a boutique business intelligence BI consultant firm. It's an end-to-end, we offer end-to-end BI solutions. We have consultants in 13 states and 5 countries. We offer business intelligence consulting, data management, change management, delivery management, as well as education and training. That's my specialty. I focus a lot in educating clients and other users how to use Alteryx. We have several software partners such as Alteryx. Highlight that one here. We were recently named the Alteryx US Partner of the Year. We also partner with Snowflake, Cloudera, Matillion, Microsoft Azure, Informatica, Tableau, and AWS. My name is Connor Smith. I'm an Alteryx specialist here at Data Meaning. And when I talk about training, I am on the data and enablement training team here at Alteryx. So that's all I do every day, is train users how to use Alteryx. I also join in on working sessions and help clients build out their business use cases, as well as office hours where I just am available for clients to access as they come in and ask questions on how they can best approach their particular scenarios. I've provided here on the screen my email address. If you want to reach out to me with any questions, feel free to note that down, connor.smith@datameaning.com. You can reach out to me directly, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn address is provided there. So let's talk about a little bit about the why of Alteryx. 37% of time that analysts spend is used searching for data. And data can be a huge challenge as far as trying to find where data tables are located. I recently just got on a call with a client, and we spent the whole hour just trying to find where the data was at. That's a lot of wasted time. Alteryx can help alleviate this problem, help you get familiar with the data faster, and help you explore your data more quickly. 26 hours per week are wasted in spreadsheets. This is common for a lot of business users. Think about how many of you, maybe as you first started at your jobs, you spend a lot of time in spreadsheets. Maybe you still do. Maybe you spend 37 hours in spreadsheets where you're just looking at an Excel spreadsheet every single day. Maybe you're power users in Excel where that's all you do your whole week, is just building formulas and kind of whittling down as much as you can at your processes in Excel. And then last metric we have here is that 13% of data science models never get built. That's because we don't have the expertise. A lot of businesses do not have data scientist experts, and so it's hard to get those models taken care of. That's kind of where Alteryx comes in. We believe that it's easier to train business users how to use advanced analytics tools like Alteryx than to try and train your IT or your developers to understand and be familiar with each and every business use case, right? If you have business users that are trained in a software like Alteryx, you have a lot more IT specialists at that point that are able to take care of the business problems that they're already familiar with. So a little bit about Alteryx. Alteryx is a proven solution globally. You have over 7,900 customers. 39% of the global Fortune 2000 companies are Alteryx users. It's a unified platform. It's a self-service tool. So when we talk about training business users how to use this, they are then able to take this and use it just like they're using Excel, right? They know how to use formulas in Excel. They know how to use VLOOKUPs. You teach them how to use Alteryx. Now they're able to tackle tasks that typically before only IT specialists were able to do for you. Alteryx offers a strong ecosystem with lots of partners, including Data Meaning. It's a customer choice product. And then one big thing that I really love to know is the community that's available around Alteryx. Alteryx has an incredible community base where, and when I say incredible, I mean, I've seen people ask a question of, I want to get my data from point A to point B. This is something they're doing their day job. They don't know how to figure it out. They throw it on the Alteryx community, and within 20, 30 minutes, someone in the community has done their work for them. Now, obviously, they're not sharing their private data, but they are sharing a form of the data, the structure of the data, to be able to get that answer from the community. So this is a huge resource to have access to. So let's talk about a little bit of what is Alteryx. So we talked about why, kind of the who. Let's talk about what. Alteryx is an APA platform, which stands for Analytic Process Automation. Alteryx will kind of perform the same way as a ETL tool in many cases, but I do want to emphasize as analytical process automation, it really is looking to automate your analytical processes, not just moving data from point A to point B, but really analyzing and summarizing that data in unique ways that you can't necessarily do without a tool like Alteryx. Just looking at this page here, you can see Alteryx has a bunch of different inputs that you can connect with. This is a very condensed list. There's lots of other resources you can certainly access, but just highlighting a few very common ones. You have an Excel file, right? A lot of businesses still work with a lot of Excel files, connecting directly to databases, whether it's a SQL database, an Oracle, Cloudera, Salesforce. All these different connections are native to Alteryx. You don't have to do anything special to get the data in. All you have to do is drag and drop. Alteryx then allows you to prep, blend your data, analyze it, and share. And we'll talk a little bit more about sharing in a moment, but I also want to emphasize enriching your data. Alteryx has a bunch of different databases you can connect to and utilize to enhance and enrich your data. So whether that's census data, Experian data, spatial data, these are all databases that are available to you as you utilize Alteryx. So after you've prepped, blend, analyze, and share your data, you are then able to output using Alteryx to one of these different output. And again, this is a condensed list. This does not by any means include everything you can output your data to, but a couple examples, very common, are going to be outputting to an Excel file, writing the data directly back to the same database you pulled it from, maybe a different table. Okay, you can go to Oracle. Two of my favorite ones are writing the data to Tableau and Power BI servers directly. As you write that data directly to these servers, you're then able to visualize that data. Alteryx does some visualization, but I'll tell you, we recommend this for most of our clients to get out the data to a real visualization software. So we'll be talking today mostly on the desktop application of Alteryx, but I do want to mention that there is also a server and a gallery where you can take something you've built, maybe a process that you've built in Designer, and move that over to the server. So let me give you an example. Imagine you build a coded script on your machine, or maybe you've put together a simple advanced, let's say an advanced VBA workbook in Excel, right? That's great, you have it, but now you want to schedule that VBA workbook to run every single day exactly at the same time. Well, that becomes a problem because then you have to have your laptop on to run that Excel workbook every single day and execute whatever process you have in that Excel workbook every single day. With the Alteryx, you can build the process in the Designer on your desktop and easily push that up to Alteryx server. And so you don't have to have your laptop on anymore, but the server will be on all the time and be able to execute that workflow that you build out exactly at the same time every single day. And so we'll go through an example of this today as we get into Alteryx. We'll do a demo real fast in just a couple minutes. I want to show you a kind of more complex use case of Alteryx. It's still pretty straightforward, but Alteryx looks like this. When you build out your workflows, your process flows, you're going to build it and it's going to look something like this with data points coming in. So you have input files listed here. You have some preparation steps that are going on here. You're blending data together at this point here. So if you look here, your transaction file, your customer file gets blended together there. And then that combined data table is joined together with our UK store information listed there. Okay, you're then able to see your data. If you want to kind of look at your data at this point, you can view and see what your data looks like. Here you're enriching your data. In this case, it's taking like lat long data points and converting those to actual spatial points on a map. And then you can visualize and look at those spatial points later on. Here you have some modeling, some predictive modeling going on, and then ultimately you're writing the information out to different locations. This particular tool is to write directly to your Tableau servers. This tool is to write to a TDE export file. So this is like the input file for a Tableau desktop application. And this is just like a static report. Maybe it's a static PDF file that you're creating, or maybe it's a static Excel file that you've created there. And then there is, like I mentioned, some interactive tools in Alteryx, like interactive visualization dashboards that you can use. But by all means, if you want to do a dashboard, you're probably going to want to go to Power BI, Tableau, or another one of those well-known visualization softwares. So just highlighting some key points here that we've got listed in the bullet points. Alteryx is a drag and drop solution. I'll kind of demo that as we get into the workflow, where no programming is required. Now I say no programming is required. I like to refer to it, however, as a no-code, code-friendly solution. So if you do have like a power user out there that's familiar with R or Python, and they want to get in and start doing some really complex stuff in Alteryx, you're definitely going to be able to let that power user loose and go to town and just lift and shift maybe processes he's already built out and put those into the Alteryx environment and schedule those on the Alteryx servers. So it allows for seamless blending of data. We see that down here, how easy it is to blend data together. There's 60 plus built-in spatial and R tools. So this is a spatial tool here. Here's an R-based tool listed there. It allows for simple creation of reports, data visualization, as well as analytical apps. And I'll refer to analytical apps as kind of just the workflow process that we have here. But instead of running this every single time with the same input files, you can allow your users to come in and replace these input files dynamically. So it's kind of just taking your workflow and adding parameters to it. Once you've done that, it's now referred to as an analytical app. This whole setup of being able to drag and drop and build this tool out as quickly as you can in Alteryx takes your productivity from days down into hours. All right, let's go through a couple other things, then we'll jump into the demo. So the object here is to empower our users. Alteryx gives faster results. 33% of business leaders say they need faster information and delivery and analysis. When you automate the business process, you can perform tasks faster, sometimes in minutes. Eliminating human errors. The average error impact per spreadsheet is $10 million. And I'll rephrase it like this. The average error impact from spreadsheets for each company is $10 million. Advanced analytics can detect anomalies and perform risk classifications, which is essentially important, especially important with the constant changing of regulations. And then Alteryx gives you the ability to scale and is more efficient. Analysts spend 8 hours per week repeating the exact same tasks. And I can tell you, I've done this. I've been in a position where I had to just repeat the same Excel task over and over again, and it's not fun. And there's a lot of risk to it. So going back to the human errors, once you've automated the process, your team can do a lot more. Instead of spending the time going through those manual steps, if you train them and upskill them, they're now able to automate those manual steps, and then they can start doing more and automating more tasks, and then managing those automated tasks, and then analyzing the results from those tasks as well. So let's jump into our demo real fast. I'll give you an outline of what we're going to accomplish with this quick Alteryx demo. We'll go through creating a database. I'll actually start first with creating an Excel spreadsheet, just because I think most of us are going to be more comfortable with Excel, but then I'll switch it over to the database at the end. You're then also going to filter the results from this Excel spreadsheet and filter for the most recent data. So we're going to look for like the top 10 records, the top most recent transactions. And then we're going to summarize those top 10 records into a consolidated table. So think like pivot table as we do the summary. Once we've got that summarized result, we can then write it back out to an Excel file. And then in addition to that, we're going to show you how you can quickly email that Excel file that we've created and have that sent out to either an end user, maybe up to a manager, or wherever you need that report to be sent to. Okay. So without further ado, we'll jump over to Alteryx and kind of introduce you to the user interface here. So this is the Alteryx desktop application. Typically, you'll start on this home screen here, and it's a good starting point. So if you download your trial, I highly recommend you going in here and just exploring these open workflows. Just click on these buttons. It'll open up a workflow for you. You can kind of test it, see what it's doing, try and figure out, reverse engineer what they're doing, trying to get an idea of how to utilize Alteryx. But since I'm here today and I'm demoing what I want to show you, I'll go to a new workflow, and you can always just click on a new tab, much like you do in a internet browser, add a new tab here, and you end up with a blank workflow. And the blank workflow is really instructional in that it tells you to drop tools here, right? It tells you how to get started. All you need to build a workflow is to go up to this section where you have tools and start dragging and dropping stuff onto the canvas, kind of painting out your process flow. Now, it does take some time to get familiar with each of these tools, but I can tell you I've upskilled clients in a matter of weeks where they go from zero to building out their own use cases in Alteryx. So it is a very, very easy tool to learn. So that's the canvas is what we like to refer to here. This is where you're going to paint your whole picture. Over here is your configuration window. You're going to see your configuration window will change based on the tools that you drag onto the canvas. So if I drag an input data tool onto the canvas, you'll see that the configuration window has updated and is now the configuration for that input data tool. Okay, let's actually start by getting some data in to my workflow and actually go to my file explorer to get started. I've got my folder here with the data file, has my transaction Excel file I mentioned we'd be starting with today. So let me just drag and drop my transaction file onto the canvas. And you'll see how easy it was to move from File Explorer, dragging and dropping an Excel file onto the canvas. It just simply will prompt me for which sheet from this Excel file I'd like to use. Okay, so it's really easy, pretty intuitive. I click on this drop down. I see there's actually only one sheet in the Excel file, so I'm just going to choose my data sheet today. Okay, so I've selected that, I press OK, and now I've added, as I dragged from here to there, I've added this tool onto the canvas automatically. So what is this tool? This tool is a connection to that Excel file, but I want to emphasize that this is a connection to this Excel file and not just the Excel file itself. What I mean by that is if I were to go in here and delete this, this tool will break. If I press run, you're going to get an exclamation mark saying, you set me up to look for a file that file no longer exists. Okay, so you do need to make sure that file is there. Hopefully my file will come back for me. I think I broke my workflow. Let's see. Moved a little bit too fast today. Not going to let me undo it here. All right, let's see where I can get my data from. Bear with me for a second. I do see there's a question coming in. Where do you get the extra item in your input-output folder? Just feeding that question there, so I'll answer that live. Could you elaborate on that question a little bit? Which extra item you're looking for? Are you talking about a menu item that's listed here? Or is there something else? While I try and figure out where I dropped that file to. You know what? I know where I can get it. So let me do this. I'm going to have to tweak this because I made a mistake, deleted the file I wasn't supposed to. This file originally comes from my database. So I'm just going to connect to my database and pull it directly from there instead. All right, so bear with me for a second as I go through this. And yeah, if you could just, the Excel inputs. Oh, this extra item. Yeah, no, great question. So these extra items, so someone's asking here in the question and answers, where are these extra items coming from? I do apologize for confusing you. These are actually macros that I built and I just added them to the input output tool palette. So technically they shouldn't be there. A great eye. I'm glad you recognize that. All right, let me do this as I connect to my database for a second. Got to pull that file down. I'll get us back on track for this demo. Here we go. That's not going to work. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to grab that file again. So if once you delete a file, I happen to be using a shared drive that doesn't let me undo. So I'm going to just access the database directly here instead. Let's see, that's not the one I want to go through. All right. That should work there. And this final one should work there. Bear with me for a second. I'll actually just build it with this in mind for starters. Let's see. So here's my database. Pretty easy to set up if you are connecting to database. I was going to save this for later, but I need to get my transaction file on track right now. All right, so I've connected now to my transaction file here. Just to create a transaction Excel file, I'm going to recreate that Excel file right now. All right, that should work for me. So it's going to query my database and recreate that Excel file. All right, and I just have to save this workflow somewhere on my desktop. So I'll put it in my demo folder here, and I'll save it over this one there. And now I should be able to get that Excel file recreated. All right, so important case there, if you delete the Excel file, you're gonna run into some headaches. All right, so now we should be able to delete that and get back on track with our demo. So bear with me as I pull this up. Go into my demo here. Should be able to get that back into my data folder. Okay, so now I have the Excel file, I'll put it back in there, reference my data sheet, and we should be good to go. All right, so this is the connection I had before I decided to delete it. It's references the Excel file that's in my data folder. You'll see here in the configuration window, there is a data preview for the data that's being loaded in. But I really want to draw your attention to the bottom right-hand corner, which is our results window. Here, the results window should show data. In fact, if I click here on the node, it's not only going to try and show me data, but it's also going to show me an explanation of why I don't have any data. And that explanation is you simply have to run the workflow. So if you press run over here, execute it, it's going to load in the data from that Excel file and display all that data for you here in the results window. Okay, so what you're seeing currently is 4,721 records. And if you scroll down to the bottom, that's how far you can see. But there are actually 10,000 records in this Excel file. So the way Alteryx will work is it's going to show you partial results, so that way you can view your results at every step along the way. And I'll show you a couple examples of that as we go through. But just note, while you are seeing 4,000 records only, all 10,000 records are being processed by the workflow itself. And just kind of calm anyone down out there if you're worried about only seeing partial results. You can easily build any of your processes out with a partial results. And if you need to see anything at any time, you can always add a browse tool onto the canvas to look at what your data looks like and see all 10,000 records in one place. So now I can scroll down and see all 10,000 records. All right, so let's start doing some analysis here. So we can ignore that browse tool for now. Our analysis should be pretty straightforward. We're going to start out with a sort tool. Let me actually pull up this here. We're going to start out with a sort tool right after we've imported these 10,000 records. We're going to sort our data and make sure it's organized by our order date here. So this is one of the fields out of the 18 fields we see. So this lists the number of columns for us. And we can filter on our order date and put that here in descending order. Okay, so I'll press run and I'll show you the output has now rearranged our data. So if I click on this output anchor there, you can see that our data, all 10,000 records, have been organized for us in descending order, meaning that the most recent dates are listed first at the top of our data set here. Okay. The reason we organized it like that is because we talked about needing to capture just the first 10 records, the most recent 10 records. So most recent data is now listed at the top. We can get the most recent 10 records by then chopping off the bottom here. We can get rid of all this data. So if we want to get rid of all this data, we can use a sample tool in Alteryx. So I'm just emphasizing here, it is a drag and drop tool. All I have to do is drag the sample tool onto the canvas, connect it there, and then configure the sample tool to do what I want it to do. Now the sample tool says first n rows. What does n mean? N is whatever you define it as down below. So it's kind of like an algebra formula. I'm going to say n equals 10, like that. And now my sample tool has been configured to give me the first 10 rows of my data. Okay, so what's the results here at this point? This is the 10 most recent transactions, right? Because I sorted in a given order, and now I take off the top 10. The top 10 is my 10 most recent transactions, okay? Perfect. So now that we've sorted our data, we're gonna move to our summary step. I'm gonna go to my transform tool palette and drag and drop a summarize tool onto the canvas. And the summary tool is going to allow me to kind of recreate what you would do with a pivot table. I'm looking for my total sales. So there's a sales column here. So these columns are just the columns that are all listed here. If you go over to the right, you see there's a sales column. If I want to get just the total sales for these 10 records, I can click on sales, click on add, and click on sum. So that's going to give me my total sales. On the output anchor, I'm just going to see a single number that gives me my total sales value. Now I can rename that. Instead of sum sales, I can call it total sales, like that. Press run again. You'll see it changes the name. But I don't just want to see the total sales. I want to see the total sales for each different product category. So again, just these 10 records, that's all I want to analyze right now. For these top 10 most recent transaction, what is the total sales for office supplies? What is the total sales for furniture? And what is the total sales for technology? Okay, if I want to do that, again, it's just as simple as a pivot table. I can go up, look for product category, click on the add here and group by that product category group. Okay, I'll move it up so that way it's the first column listed. Press run. You'll see now my analysis shows me what the total sales is for each of those categories based off those top 10 records. So that's a simple demo example of how to use Alteryx to do some analysis. Now we're going to go ahead and output this analysis, this summary, if you would, to an Excel file. So I'm going to go for my input output tool palette, drag and drop an output data tool onto the canvas. And with this output data tool, I'm going to create a sales report summary Excel file. So I can click on that drop down there, go to my files and highlight an Excel file there. If I just click on the .xlsx, I'm going to start creating an Excel file here. So I'll write this out to my output folder. I probably already have a file there, so I'll just actually use the one that's already there. I'm going to overwrite it. So I'll press save. Actually, you know what? Let me do a V2 or demo version here, just so it's a different file. Press save, and now I'm starting to create my Excel file. This sheet I'm going to call my summary sheet. Press OK, and you'll notice here that I'm pointing at the full path. Now, just for later purposes, I'm actually not going to write exactly to this output file. I'm actually going to just write to the Excel file directly. So I'm not going to give it a full path. Anytime you don't give it a full path here in Alteryx, what you end up doing is writing this Excel file in the same location that this workflow is saved. So if you saw where I saved my workflow is currently saved under, let's see, it's under my demo folder. So under my demo folder is where I'm going to write my Excel file to. Okay, so just to let you know where that Excel file is going to go. All right, so now I'm writing to that Excel file. I do want to tweak this third option here to overwrite shoot arrange. Otherwise, the second time I run the workflow, it may throw an error. Okay, I'll press run there and show you what this output looks like. Okay, so it's written my data output. If I click anywhere white on my canvas, you should see down here that I've wrote to my Excel file in my demo folder, and I created a sheet called my summary sheet. What's really neat is I don't have to go and navigate to this. I can just click the hyperlink here, and Alteryx will go ahead and open up that file for me in Excel. All right, and there you have it. You've got your quick little summary sheet. All right, very simple. We've got a summary sheet of all the data there. Now I'm going to close this and add one more sheet to this Excel file. So instead of just showing me the summary, I'd also like to be able to check where the summary came from. So I can write these 10 files to that same Excel file on a different sheet. Let me just emphasize this as well. I said I'd mention it later. I can explore at any point in time in my process what the data looks like by just clicking on these anchors. So I click on the output anchor, I can see exactly what the data looks like before or right after the sort tool. If I click on the input anchor, it shows me what the data looks like right before that sort tool. Okay, so right before this configuration is applied to my data, I can look at the before and I can look at the after. If I go to my sample tool, I can look at the 10,000 records that makes it here, right before the sample tool, and I can see that only 10 records make it out of the sample tool. I can look at my summarize tool before, I got 10 records going in. The output shows me only 3 records because that's the number of records for the summary table that I've created. okay? So as I'm going back to my sample tool, I want to output these 10 records to a different sheet. So I can actually copy this, so it's pointing at the same Excel file. I'm going to copy this Excel file, right-click, copy, right-click, paste, and I can connect my sample tool then to my output tool. Now, so I don't write to the same Excel sheet, I'm going to change the summary sheet to just be my data sheet instead. Okay, so that way this tool is going to write to my data sheet. Okay, before I run it, I happen to know there's one thing you need to be aware of, and that is anytime you have two tools that are referencing the exact same file, so both these are technically referencing the same Excel file, you do need to have a block until done tool as part of the workflow. So I'm going to add a block until done tool onto the canvas, and I'll feed that in here. I'll connect my 1 to my summarize, and I'll connect my 2 to the tool on here. And all this block until done tool does is make sure that this file, this Excel file, has been opened, the summary sheet has been created, and the Excel file has been saved before Alteryx tries to open this file and create the data sheet. If Alteryx didn't have the block until done tool here, Alteryx might try to open an Excel sheet 2 different times, and one of those times it's going to fail because the other time already had it open. So just kind of keep that in mind if you ever are working with writing to 2 different sheets. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can press run here, and I can take a look at my output anchor or my output file. So I'm opening this Excel file up, taking a look at it here, and you can see my summary sheet and my data sheet listed out. Okay, so it's a small, simple example of data analysis and being able to process that data. I did show you this was from an Excel file. I'll reconnect to my database and show you how quickly you can change the connections. So if I add an input data tool here, I can connect this to my database as I was doing before, where I got this data from to begin with. Let me just put those credentials in again. Just like that. Connect it here. Go down below. I think it's my transaction file that I want to use. Press OK there. And now this is going to be the exact same data as what we saw there, right? We already showed you how this came from here. Okay. If I want to rerun this process, the whole analytic process with a new file, I can move it like this and connect it like so. Okay. Press run like that. And now it's querying the database directly instead. Okay. This wasn't even used. This Excel file wasn't referenced. Okay. This data came from my database. If instead of a database, maybe you are working with Excel files. Let me actually delete the database for a second. Let's say you are working with Excel files each and every time. If that's the case, you may consider parameterizing this input. And you can do that by going to the interface tools, connecting a file browse tool to your input tool. And now your user can update it with an updated file, like so. Okay. So once you've done this, you've now converted your workflow into an analytical app. And I press save, so now it wants to save it as an analytical app. Let me show you that again. So I added a file browse connected to my data input tool. I'm saving it. And when I press save, it wants to now save as an analytical app instead, a YXWZ. Before it was a YXMD. So I'll press save. Now my workflows become what we refer to as an analytical app. Okay. What an analytical app looks like is a user interface where my user can upload their own file. In fact, my user doesn't even have to open or see all of this logic. They can just see this screen. So if I go to File Explorer and field this out, let's go to my demo. If I have my Alteryx workflow all closed up, they can just double click this YXWZ file and it's going to automatically open up as just a simple app for them to use. They can upload their updated file, press run, and it's going to go through that already planned out analysis process. Okay. Let me pull Excel back up. I do see there's a question here. Is it possible to connect store procedures, Oracle, and Alteryx? I believe the answer to that question is yes. As you would have seen when I connected my database, there was a stored procedure section there as well. So I'd love to connect with you a little bit later on that question and see if we can't solidify the answer a little bit more for you. Okay, great question. All right, email it. So now we have the file. We don't just want to create the file and have it sit on our desktop. We want this to automatically get sent out and emailed to somebody else. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. There are some email tools here. We can actually drag and drop the email tool on the canvas, configure that, make it work for you. But I'm actually going to use a different option today, which is the event tab. If you go to the event tab, you click add, you can add either a run command, which would run maybe a command prompt that you want to execute after you've ran your whole workflow. So maybe you need to run some command prompt against this Excel file. If you want to do that, you certainly can. Or this other option, which is email. And that's what the option we're going to use today. I'll click on send email, and I can configure this to send an email out every time this workflow runs. Okay, so I do have to double check my configuration. Let's see, that doesn't look quite right. Let's see. I think it's 588, 587 is my port. I might be wrong on my port, but I may have to double check. But you'll have to know the port information for your particular setup. But since I'm using Outlook, mine should be 587. I'm going to use the start TLS there. Authentication, I'll need to put in my username, which is just my email address at datameaning.com. Okay, I'm going to send this email from my email address, and I do need to put my password in there. And then my to address that I'm going to use is going to be demo at datameaning.me. Okay. Now I can customize the subject. I will note there are some special parameters here. In this case, the app name or the module there, that's referring to this here. So if we want to kind of reference some of this information dynamically, you certainly can use these parameters to get that information dynamically. But I'm just going to hard code the subject here as sales summary report demo live. Okay, so that's going to be the subject of the email. Let's see if I can get some body. I had a pre-drafted email here. Don't seem to have it anymore. The port is 587 for me. Just found that. This is the pre-drafted email that I'm going to send. So I'm just going to say, hello, please see the sales summary report attached. Regards, and then sign off with Connor Smith. Now this is the biggest one here, the attachment. We need to attach this Excel file. If I press plus here, I'm going to do reference, and I can browse for wherever that demo Excel file is coming out. So that's where it's showing up right there. So I can attach that Excel file and press open. Okay, press OK, and then press OK again. And now this is configured to grab that Excel file and add it. Now I'm actually going to modify. Let's see if it lets me. I'm going to modify this. I'm going to use what's referred to as relative paths. So if I just give it the Excel file name, it's going to know that that Excel file is in the same folder as this workflow is. And so it's going to be a little bit more flexible for what we need to do today. So I'll press OK there, press OK here, and now my workflow is set up to send that email. Now, actually, you'll see it's disabled. You do have to enable that event. Let me edit it again. You can decide when this email actually gets sent. And you can see there's a couple different options here. You can just send it every time it runs. I typically like to say send the email every time it runs without errors, because then I know this is the updated summary report. I'm not sending a maybe outdated version of the file, right? Because the way this is going to work is it's going to write to that same location each and every time, and this is going to pick up that same location each and every time. Well, if it's last week data that gets sent, I want to make sure that the file's actually been updated, so it's not going to be last week's data. Okay, press OK there, and now I can test it. I press run, and you'll see it goes through that process, queries that Excel file, orders it in the proper order, returns the top 10 transactions, summarizes it, writes that Excel file, and then at the very bottom here, you can see it has completed event 1. After run without errors, it emailed the email directly to demo at datameaning. Okay. All right. Let's do this just for the sake of time. I've got about 5 minutes left to go through this demo. Once you've built this whole process out, the next step would be scheduling it to run. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to just skip over the how you get it to the server. I will mention it's pretty easy. Just go to File, Save As, Private Gallery. I'm going to send this to my development gallery for today. Okay, so I'm pushing this workflow to my Alteryx server, and then I can press Save. I'm going to skip my credentials for the sake of time here, and then I can press View in Browser. And the View in Browser here is going to open up in my web browser this workflow on my server machine. This is Alteryx Gallery, where I can now look at the workflow that we just built together, and I can execute it. So if I want to test to make sure that workflow still runs, I can press Run here. It looks like it prompts me for a file, and not the best because I don't have that file. I can browse for it. Let's see, I'll need to go into my class for today. I'll just browse off screen for a second. I'm going to browse for that file and pull up our transaction file. So that way it's available there. Let's see, here we go. There we go. So I've uploaded that transaction file, and I'm going to upload the data sheet to the server. Press Run. Now that workflow should run here with that transaction file. And of course, it's giving me an error today. Let me try and rerun it. Let's see if it goes through a second time. I may be referencing the wrong file. Yeah, I know what I did wrong. Okay. I skipped a step in uploading. Let me just bear with me as I go through it again. Save as, browse, save as, public gallery, development. I forgot to uncheck a very important box, and that is getting rid of these output files here. Once I've unchecked that, it should run just fine for me. And I'll actually make it simple. I'll get rid of this app, so that way it's not a parameterized app, and just run it as a regular workflow. So let me do a save as here, make sure I save it as a regular workflow instead. There we go. And now I can push it up. I do need to make sure I do not include that asset so it doesn't throw the errors we were seeing. Okay, press OK there, skip credentials, view in browser, and we should have it working just fine now. Okay, so now I can press Run, make sure the workflow runs. Press Run there. Spends a couple seconds, but now it's created on the server machine. It's created this Excel file. And from the server machine, I'm then able to download and access that Excel file. Remember, we scheduled this to send an email as well. Okay, so let me go into my Outlook email. Let's see if I can pull a version of Outlook email up real fast. I think it's going to be this one, has my Outlook open. I want to point out my Outlook email, my demo account here, as we just executed it and ran the workflow a couple times. Let's refresh. You should see each time I ran the workflow, an email came in for my demo account. Okay, so you see this one here where we ran it. It executed and ran and sent an email to this email account. Okay, so you can see this is what the email looks like. Hello, please see attached. And here's the attached Excel file from Alteryx. And then here's the one that just came in that was sent from the server when I scheduled it with the gallery. So at 11:56, that one was executed one time on the gallery, came over, sent that same email from the server machine. Okay, so what's really neat about that is not only are you able to, let's see, this is the wrong server. Not only are you able to run it manually, once you have it on the server, you can also schedule it to run on a regular basis. Now this one's not going to because this is actually the wrong one. Let's go here. I think it was the one on the right. Okay, so you've scheduled to run, you're able to schedule this workflow to run every day at a certain time. Now a good example of that is this here, where you see an email came in every single day at the same time because it was scheduled to run on our gallery environment. Okay, so that's really what I want to cover in terms of the demo today. I'll get back to our PowerPoint, cover the last couple points, but I do want you thinking of questions. If you have any, love to answer those as we wrap up here our session. Let me see if I can't find my PowerPoint, and then we will cap off with a couple things here. So one last or second, maybe third to last slide I'll show you is what we can do at Data Meeting to help you. Data Meeting, we do on-site trainings. We do virtual trainings, we do office hours. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we can get on, help your team learn how to use Alteryx, answer any questions they have as they're building out the use cases, and really even just help them understand their use cases. If I've been on a couple of calls where maybe the business user isn't too familiar exactly what's going on. He just kind of took up an Excel process and runs with that every time. And he doesn't quite understand all the formulas. We are trained professionals who've done a lot of analytics, not just in Alteryx, but in Excel and other platforms as well. So we certainly have a ton of resources that are able to help you in those questions. In addition to those office hours answering questions, we do workshops and collaborative sessions. We've recently started doing some data challenges. So kind of give different use cases your attendees can try to practice Alteryx with. And then of course, server implementation. We do offer a package where we can help you install your server, get you implemented with the best practices. Just recapping what we covered today, we talked a little bit about the why behind Alteryx, did that Alteryx demo, the use case, did a quick look at Alteryx server, just seeing the ability to schedule out and run those on the server machine, and then also discussed briefly how data meaning can help. I'll kind of end off with thanking you all for attending. I want to provide a additional email address. If you don't want to email me, you can certainly reach out to info@datameaning.com. You can reach out to our whole organization. But if you want to email me directly, my email is connor.smith@datameaning.com. We provided already a free 30-day license for Alteryx if you access that in the chat. If you need me to share it again, just ask for it in the Q&A and I'll send that directly to you as well. We look forward to helping you in your analytical journey. And with that, I'll leave off to see if there's any questions, and please do feel free to ask any question that you may have. Of course. And please feel free to reach out to Data Meaning. We'd love to get on a call. We could do a quick free demo if you just want to see if Alteryx is right for you. Happy to jump in there and show you a couple different use cases that might be applicable to your unique industries. I'll hang out for a couple of minutes, see if there's any other questions. You know what, Ed, that's a great question. If I'll be doing more advanced webinars. This is actually one of my first. So I'll reach out to my team. If we get a lot of positive feedback from this one, we'll definitely plan on doing some more. All right, if not, again, just want to thank you all for your time and participation today. Appreciate the comments and the feedback. Definitely will look to doing more of those advanced sessions. Again, if you haven't got your free trial license, please feel free to access that and get that downloaded on your end so you can start using Alteryx at your organization. And then I think we shared here in the chat access to our LinkedIn videos. If you want to watch the recording as well, you can find that on our LinkedIn page. Yeah, and please do feel free to reach out. I definitely love hearing from these participants from the webinars or other trainings that I've done. And it's always great to hear that this was useful for each of you. It looks like attendees will receive that webinar recording via email as well. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I think we're going to wrap up the webinar here.